Today is Thursday, June 27th, 2024. Our dear friend Max Blumenthal of the Gray Zone is here with us today. Max, always a pleasure, my dear friend. Thank you. Here's the latest from Prime Minister Netanyahu. This is just 90 minutes ago. It's about a minute and 20 seconds long. You might have to hold your nose as you listen to it, but here he is.
And Iran is fighting us on a seven-front war. Obviously, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, the militias in Iraq and Syria, Judea, Samaria, West Bank, Iran itself. They'd like to topple Jordan, and their goal is to have a combined ground offensive from various fronts, coupled with a combined missile bombardment. We have to, we've been given the opportunity to scuttle it, and we will. The first requirement is to cut that hand, Hamas. People who do this thing to us are not going to be there. And we'll have a long battle. I don't think it's that long, but we'll get rid of them. We also have to deter the other elements of the Iran terror axis. But we have to deal with the axis. The axis doesn't threaten only us, it threatens you. It's on the march to conquer the Middle East. Conquer the Middle East. Conquer. That means actually conquer. Conquer Saudi Arabia, conquer the Arabian Peninsula. It's just a question of time. And what's standing in their way is the small Satan, that's us, on the road to the middle-sized Satans, that's the Europeans. They're always offended when I tell them that. You're the great Satan, not them. Okay, and we have to stop them.
Have you seen such paranoia before, even from him?
I have. I mean, he's notoriously paranoid, and so is virtually every other Israeli leader. I mean, what Netanyahu was articulating there is the de facto Israeli security concept, which is to wage perpetual war at various levels, and they would prefer a lower intensity war against all of the allies of Iran, which is basically the axis of resistance. Anyone who resists Israel, including Sunni forces like Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and virtually all factions in the Gaza Strip, because their constituents, the people of Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem, don't want to live under occupation. So Netanyahu is predicting this victory over Hamas, a victory which the Israeli army spokesman, Colonel Daniel Hagari, has said is not possible. In other words, it's not possible to completely defeat Hamas. Netanyahu is refusing to put forward a plan for the day after his imaginary victory, and Israel continues to bombard the civilian population of the Gaza Strip, attacking places where they claimed operational holds months ago. Today, as we speak, Israel is bombarding the neighborhood of Shujaiya, east of Gaza City, where they claimed an operational hold last March. They'd just been to Jabalia camp in the north, where they claimed an operational hold in January. So I don't know how long his long war will continue to take place, but while he's predicting this victory, Netanyahu's defense secretary, who's also wanted by the International Criminal Court, Yoav Gallant, Mr. Human Animals, was in Washington. He was just at the Capitol today, trying to convince Lloyd Austin and the Pentagon to support Israel as it conducted what it calls a limited operation to push back Hezbollah north of the Litani River in southern Lebanon. And it appears that the U.S. is warning them against such an operation, and has told them, this is according to reports now filtering out in Israeli media,
Right,
that Israel cannot do a limited operation without triggering an all-out war with Hezbollah. Israel's state comptroller has said that it would not be possible to conduct a neat and tidy evacuation of Israel's north. The head of Israel's largest electricity company said the electricity grid is not ready, and we know that Hezbollah has advanced intelligence on virtually every sensitive site in the north, thanks to its successful drone infiltrations. So the U.S. is deeply concerned about where Israel's going. And Netanyahu looks like he needs the long war for his personal purposes, while the families of captives in Gaza plead for him to do a ceasefire so they can have their family members back.
How unstable is his premiership? uh, whether it's because the hostages have not been returned, or the vast majority of them, or the Israeli Supreme Court ruling that the ultra Orthodox have to be drafted, and that might bust apart his coalition. What's your feel for the legal mechanism that might or political mechanism that might undo him?
My sense is his coalition is fairly resilient, that drafting the ultra Orthodox has not yet produced the kind of defections that he might have worried about. A lot of this owes itself to Netanyahu's Francis Urquhart style shivving of all political rivals throughout his long career, the consolidation of Israel as kind of a Likud state, which leaves very few alternatives within Likud to Netanyahu, and a very weak opposition. As long as the war is going on, much of the public will remain united in support of the goals. And you look at polling of Jewish Israelis, most support continuing the war in Gaza and even escalating in the north. So I think one of the only things that could actually undo Netanyahu is hubris and marching into southern Lebanon. I can talk for the next half hour about why that would be a disaster, but the U.S. Pentagon is determined that Iran could potentially get involved and carry out a ballistic missile attack that would pulverize Israel's missile defenses. Today, Hezbollah fired 40 rockets and Israel only intercepted 20 of them, which is a pretty weak rate. So I think that could be one of the few things that would unravel his coalition.
Colonel McGregor said virtually the same thing that you did. It would be hubris manifested in an invasion of the north that would undo Netanyahu's government. It might even undo Israel. Here's two war criminals talking together about what you were just mentioning with respect to Lebanon. Cut number 9, Chris.
Hezbollah's provocations threaten to drag the Israeli and Lebanese people into a war that they do not want. Another war between Israel and Hezbollah could easily become a regional war with terrible consequences for the Middle East.
The greatest threat to the future of the world and the future of our region is Iran, and time is running out.
Where are they going with that?
Well, he's right that time is running out. I think, we can look at the Russian thinking on Ukraine. The charter ship of the Russian Black Sea Fleet was taken down by Ukrainian missiles, I think in like late 2022, the Moscow. It was an old ship and a neglected fleet, but these were Ukrainian domestically made anti-ship missiles. I think they're called Neptune missiles. And that kind of development, the domestic military development of a country that was being transformed into a kind of anti-Russian bastion, was deeply threatening to Russia's strategic depth. So I think that influenced Putin's thinking on going in, neutralizing the threat at the cost of sanctions and the United States possibly escalating that war. For Israel, Iran is developing a very robust drone fleet that is apparently superior to Israel's drone fleet. Hezbollah is developing anti-aircraft capability, and they've taken down 1/5 of Israel's Hermes drones, which are its most advanced drones produced by its Elbit State Arms Company. They've infiltrated Israeli territory and escaped with their own drones. So the longer Israel waits, the more these countries continue to reverse engineer sophisticated Western weapons, gain ballistic missile technology from North Korea, which makes some of the best ballistic missiles in the world. And so in a way, they're right. And this really speaks to the vulnerability of Zionism and the Zionist project, which is just endlessly hostile to all countries around it. And by nature, just because of its inherent philosophical logic, cannot make peace with Arabs around it, and must rely on the United States to either buy those Arab leaders off, as we see in Jordan, or brutally repress them, as we see how the Egyptian population is treated. That cannot continue forever. So he's right. Israel is running out of time, and I think that speaks to the urgency of their drive to attack southern Lebanon. And, a close advisor to Vladimir Zelensky, Mikhailo Podolyak, declared after this heinous attack that there are no civilians in Crimea. There are no uninvolved people there. Everyone there is part of this war, and therefore it's legitimate to kill them.
Sounds like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir.
Sounds like Netanyahu. Sounds like the average Jewish Israeli right now. It also sounds like the average Nazi leader who justified the killing of Poles and Russians in World War II. And so now you can understand, first of all, why the Russian UN ambassador is referring to them as a neo-Nazi regime, but also why over 90% of residents of Crimea voted to join the Russian Federation in a referendum in 2014 after the Kiev regime's Maidan coup, in which they brought into power a oligarchic nationalist regime heavily influenced by neo-Nazis who sees the population of Crimea, who are ethnic Russians and Russian speakers, as basically cockroaches, the same way the Jewish Israelis see Palestinians. Now it's very clear why they did that, and the U.S. has sanctioned Crimea and bans its own citizens from even traveling there because they want to declare that referendum illegitimate. It's obvious now the referendum was legitimate.
And